be better off in any other place. There shouldn't be so much whining and bellyaching.
John Wayne, the legendary cowboy of Hollywood, lived a life filled with fame and fierce battles off-screen. However, behind the tough exterior lies a truth about him that few truly know. His tragic, sorrowful passing left behind not only a shattered family, but also a legacy that echoes the memories of his legendary career. But what's now left of everything he built? Join us as we uncover the untold story, the Duke, his net worth, and the legacy he passed on. A twist of fate. Marion Robert Morrison, known to the world later as John Wayne, was born on May 26, 1907, in a modest house at 224 South 2nd Street in the quiet town of Winterset, Iowa. When he arrived, he was a big baby, weighing around 13 pounds, something the local newspaper, the Winterset Madisonian, made sure to mention just a few days later. His parents had originally given him the middle name Robert, but it seems there was a family twist. Wayne would often say that his middle name had been changed to Michael after his parents decided to save Robert for their next child. However, no solid records of this change have ever been found. In official documents, his name remained Marion Robert Morrison throughout his life, though many later referred to him as Marion Michael Morrison. His father, Clyde Leonard Morrison, was the son of a Civil War veteran, Marion Mitchell Morrison, whose life had been shaped by the hardships and triumphs of that era. His mother, Mary Alberta Brown, better known as Molly, came from Lancaster County in Nebraska. His great-great-grandfather, Robert Morrison, left County Antrim in Ireland in 1799 with his mother, making the long journey to America. They settled in Ohio. Growing up, Wayne was raised in the Presbyterian faith. When Wayne was still a boy, his family packed up and moved to California, first to Palmdale and then to Glendale in 1916. They lived at 404 Isabel Street, and his father worked as a pharmacist. Wayne attended Glendale Union High School, where he quickly made a name for himself. He wasn't just a student. He threw himself into everything the school had to offer. He joined the football team, the debating team, led the Latin Society as its president, and even wrote for the school's sports column. On his way to school, he often passed by a fire station, where a fireman gave him a nickname that would stick for life. Since he was always seen with his big Airedale Terrier Duke, the firemen began calling him Little Duke. Wayne liked the sound of it far better than his given name, Marion, and soon enough everyone was calling him Duke. He also attended Wilson Middle School in Glendale and worked part-time at an ice cream shop run by a man who also shoed horses for Hollywood studios. Even as a teenager, Wayne stayed busy. He joined the Order of Demolay, a youth organization, and continued to play football, helping his high school team win the league championship in 1924. Dreaming of a future in the Navy, Wayne applied to the United States Naval Academy, but his grades didn't make the cut. Instead, he enrolled at the University of Southern California, choosing to study pre-law. He became active in campus life, joining the Trojan Knights and Sigma Chi fraternity. Standing tall at 6 feet 4.5 inches, he played for the USC football team under the skilled guidance of Coach Howard Jones. But his sports career hit an unexpected roadblock. During a body surfing accident, he broke his collarbone. Too nervous to admit the real cause to his tough coach, he kept it to himself. Unfortunately, the injury cost him his athletic scholarship, and without the funds to continue, he had to leave school. However, life had other plans for him. As a favor to his coach, who had shared game tickets with silent film star Tom Mix, Wayne got a job through director John Ford and Tom Mix, working behind the scenes as a prop boy and extra. Wayne would later say that his trademark walk, way of speaking, and overall style were inspired by Wyatt Earp, a friend of Tom Mix. Gradually, Wayne began getting small roles in films, often thanks to John Ford, with whom he built a lasting friendship. Early on, he had a tiny, uncredited part as a guard in Bartley's The Magnificent in 1926. He also showed up in football scenes in movies like Brown of Harvard, The Dropkick, Salute, and Maker of Men. While working at Fox Film Corporation, Wayne was credited only once as Duke Morrison in Words and Music in 1929. Until one day, director Raoul Walsh noticed Wayne moving furniture around the studio and saw something in him. Walsh cast him as the lead in The Big Trail, released in 1930, and when it came time to choose a stage name, Walsh first suggested Anthony Wayne, after the Revolutionary War hero. But studio boss Winfield Sheehan thought it sounded too Italian. So Walsh came up with John Wayne, and Sheehan approved. Wayne himself wasn't even there for the decision. His pay was bumped up to $105 a week, a big step forward. The Big Trail was a grand production for its time, costing over $2 million. Shot in both the standard 35mm and a new widescreen 70mm grandeur format, it captured the vast beauty of the American Southwest. Though audiences who saw it in the widescreen version were thrilled, very few theaters had the equipment to show it properly. The film didn't do well at the box office then, but later it earned great respect from critics and movie historians, proving that Wayne's trail was only just beginning. Career breakthrough. After The Big Trail failed at the box office, John Wayne found himself pushed into the background of major studio films. His roles became smaller, and in some cases, hardly any roles at all. But Wayne didn't give up. He kept working wherever he could, taking parts in productions that came his way. In 1933, he starred in The Three Musketeers, not as the classic swashbuckler, but in a new take, set in North Africa, where the main characters were soldiers in the French Foreign Legion. Even though it was just a serial, Wayne led the cast with his name proudly displayed above the title. Throughout the 1930s, Wayne became the star of many low-budget westerns churned out by studios like Monogram Pictures and Mascot Pictures Corporation. These were the so-called Poverty Row productions, made fast and cheap, but they kept Wayne in front of the camera. By his own count, he acted in around 80 of these westerns during that decade. In Riders of Destiny, Wayne even became one of the first singing cowboys in movies. He also appeared in a few films from the Three Musketeers series, a playful twist on Alexandre Dumas' famous title. While working on these films, Wayne learned from the best stuntmen in the business. He trained hard to master horseback riding and other essential Western skills. One of his closest collaborators was Yakima Canutt, a brilliant stuntman who worked with Wayne to create thrilling action scenes and fight choreography that set new standards. Together, they made the action feel raw and real. Before Wayne came along, film heroes were expected to play fair in fights while villains were free to fight dirty. Wayne changed that. He made sure the heroes fought to win, using every trick in the book, throwing chairs, smashing lamps, and not waiting politely for the bad guy to stand back up. This fresh, gritty approach made the action exciting and helped bring a new level of energy to the genre. Wayne's big break finally came in 1939 when John Ford cast him in Stagecoach. Up to that point, Wayne's long run in low-budget westerns had hurt his reputation in the industry. Studios were reluctant to invest in him for a high-profile film. Even Ford struggled to secure funding, as studio after studio turned him down. Eventually, independent producer Walter Wanger agreed to back the project, but only if Claire Trevor, a much bigger star at the time, received top billing. Stagecoach became a huge hit, both critically and financially, and it launched Wayne into mainstream stardom. People began to see him not just as another cowboy actor, but as the embodiment of the American everyman, someone tough, relatable, and deeply human. When World War II began, Hollywood, like the rest of the country, rallied behind the war effort. Wayne, at 34, was technically too old to be drafted, and his family situation qualified him for a deferment. Despite this, Wayne wanted to serve. He wrote to John Ford more than once, asking if there was a way he could join Ford's military unit. However, his studio, Republic Pictures, had other ideas. They were determined not to lose their only major star and even threatened him with a lawsuit if he walked away from his contract. The studio lobbied hard to keep him deferred, and they succeeded. Records later revealed that Wayne tried to join the Office of Strategic Services, the intelligence agency that came before the CIA. Unfortunately, his application didn't go through. Still, he did what he could. Wayne spent 3 months touring military bases and hospitals in the South Pacific, visiting soldiers and boosting morale with the USO. While there, he also completed a special mission for the head of the OSS, William Donovan. Donovan had asked Wayne to quietly assess whether General Douglas MacArthur or his staff were creating obstacles for OSS operations in the region. When the tour ended, Donovan honored Wayne's efforts with an official OSS Certificate of Service. Despite these contributions, Wayne's inability to serve in combat haunted him for the rest of his life. Those who knew him well believed this guilt fueled his fierce patriotism in the years that followed. His widow later suggested that he spent the rest of his life trying to make up for it, becoming an outspoken supporter of the military and American values. In 1941, Wayne starred in his first color film, The Shepherd of the Hills, alongside his close friend Harry Carey. The next year, he worked with the legendary Cecil B. DeMille in Reap the Wild Wind, a grand Technicolor adventure where Wayne played a more morally complex character than usual. Like many stars of the era, Wayne also made guest appearances on popular radio shows, recreating scenes from his films and even starring in his own series, 3 Sheets to the Wind. In that show, he played a detective who pretended to be an alcoholic to mask his real work as an investigator. Although the show was planned as a stepping stone to a feature film, no such movie was ever made. In 1949, director Robert Rossen offered Wayne the lead role in All the King's Men. But Wayne turned it down, feeling the script conflicted with his beliefs. Ironically, the part went to Broderick Crawford, who not only took the role but also won an Oscar for it, beating Wayne himself, who was nominated the same year for Sands of Iwo Jima. Subsequent works in later years. John Wayne once missed out on a role he really wanted. He had the chance to play Jimmy Ringo in The Gunfighter back in 1950, but his old grudge got in the way. Years earlier, the head of Columbia Pictures, Harry Cohn, had treated him poorly when he was just a young actor. Even though Cohn had bought the movie with Wayne in mind, Wayne refused to work with him again. As a result, Cohn sold the project to 20th Century Fox, and Gregory Peck ended up playing the lead role that Wayne had desired but couldn't bring himself to take. In 1952, Wayne co-founded his own production company called Batjock. Interestingly, the name came from a shipping company in one of his earlier films, Wake of the Red Witch. A small mistake by his secretary led to the unusual spelling, but Wayne decided to keep it that way. Through Batjock and its earlier version, Wayne Fellows Productions, he produced several films, not just for himself, but for other stars as well. Some notable ones were 7 Men from Now, which started a famous team-up between director Bud Boetiker and actor Randolph Scott, and Gun the Man Down, which featured James Arness. One of Wayne's biggest hits was The High and the Mighty in 1954. He played a brave co-pilot and won loads of praise. Aviation roles seemed to suit him well since he also starred as a pilot in Flying Tigers, Flying Leathernecks, Island in the Sky, The Wings of Eagles, and Jet Pilot. Wayne had a long partnership with director John Ford, working together on almost 24 films over 20 years. Some of their best-known collaborations include She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, The Quiet Man, and The Wings of Eagles. His role in The Searchers is often seen as one of his most powerful performances, showing a more complicated side of his usual tough guy image. In 1958, Wayne made a brief but fun appearance as himself in I Married a Woman. That same year, he took the lead in The Barbarian and the Geisha, though it was known for behind-the-scenes clashes with director John Huston. The following year, Rio Bravo came out, where Wayne starred alongside Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson, playing a sheriff defending his town. Then came The Horse Soldiers, set during the Civil War, where he shared the screen with William Holden. Although not all his choices worked out, he took on the role of Genghis Khan in The Conqueror, but the film was a disaster, with critics tearing it apart. Meanwhile, in 1960, Wayne directed and produced The Alamo, playing the heroic Davy Crockett. He earned an Oscar nomination as a producer for this epic film. Around the same time, he starred in North to Alaska, and later in The Comancheros, sharing the spotlight with Stuart Whitman. The early 1960s were busy years for him. He teamed up with James Stewart in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, led an adventure in Africa with Hatari, and stood out in the massive war film The Longest Day. While other big stars agreed to work for a small fee to keep the budget in check, Wayne was paid a hefty sum because of past disagreements with the film's producer. In 1963, Wayne appeared in How the West Was Won and made his final film with John Ford, Donovan's Reef. He also starred alongside Maureen O'Hara in the lively comedy McLintock. The mid-60s kept him in the spotlight. He acted in Circus World with Rita Hayworth, made a cameo in The Greatest Story Ever Told, and led the cast of In Harm's Way and The Sons of Katie Elder. He even popped up briefly in Cast a Giant Shadow, starring Kirk Douglas. Wayne continued to stay active. In The War Wagon, he again worked with Kirk Douglas, and in El Dorado, he starred in a familiar storyline alongside Robert Mitchum. In 1968, he co-directed The Green Berets, a rare Hollywood film supporting the Vietnam War, and later played a daring firefighter in Hellfighters. Then came True Grit In, where his portrayal of Rooster Cogburn won him the Best Actor Oscar. That same year, he starred in The Undefeated with Rock Hudson. He kept going strong with Chisholm, Rio Lobo, and Big Jake, the last of which became a big hit. In The Cowboys, he played a tough yet fatherly figure, leading a group of boys on a dangerous cattle drive. Though the film had mixed reviews, Wayne's performance stood out. Fun fact, that same year the Atlanta Falcons jokingly drafted him in the last round of the NFL draft, though the league didn't approve it, as Wayne was already in his 60s. Wayne's later films included The Train Robbers and the crime thriller Make Q, where he played a detective. In Brannigan, he took his rugged charm to London, tracking down a mob boss. He even revisited his Oscar-winning character in Rooster Cogburn. Finally, in 1976, Wayne starred in The Shootist, playing an aging gunslinger facing his last days, a role that mirrored his own battle with cancer. It was a fitting farewell. The film became one of the year's top choices for critics, earning several award nominations and cementing Wayne's legacy as a true icon of cinema. Marriages, children, and prized possessions. Wayne's life was as dramatic and colorful as the roles he played on screen. He married 3 times but found himself divorced twice along the way. His first wife, Josephine Alicia Science, had roots in Spanish America. With her, he had 4 children who would carry his legacy: Michael, Mary Antonia, who was lovingly called Tony, Patrick, and Melinda. Later, he married Esperanza Bauer, a Mexican actress. But their time together was filled with tension and conflict. Esperanza grew deeply jealous, convinced that Wayne was involved with his co-star, Gail Russell. Both Wayne and Russell denied anything beyond friendship, but that didn't stop suspicions from brewing. On the night filming ended for Angel and the Bad Man, Wayne returned home late after a rap party. Esperanza, consumed by anger and alcohol, reached for a gun and tried to fire at him as he entered the house. It was a moment straight out of one of his Western films, except this time, it was all too real. Finally, he found Pilar Palet, a woman from Latin America who not only became his wife, but also the mother of 3 more of his children, Isa, John Ethan, and Marisa. Many of Wayne's children didn't just grow up under the shadow of their famous father, but followed paths close to his. Ethan Wayne, who sometimes went by John Ethan Wayne in films, stepped into the acting world himself. He later took on a leading role in the revived television series Adam 12 during the 1990s. Ethan even appeared on the popular show Pawn Stars, helping to confirm the authenticity of items tied to his father's legendary career. The family's connection to entertainment didn't stop there. Wayne's granddaughter, Jennifer Wayne, daughter of Isa, found her stage not in film but in music. She became a part of the country music trio Runaway June, proving that talent in the Wayne family came in many forms. Pilar had a love for tennis, a passion that would eventually lead to something much bigger in Wayne's life. In 1973, she inspired Wayne to build the John Wayne Tennis Club in Newport Beach, California. It became a lively spot for sports lovers, and over time, the club changed hands, eventually becoming the Palisades Tennis Club under the ownership of Ken Stewart, a former manager. Even in small details of his life and films, Wayne's larger-than-life persona shone through. Wayne's life was marked by many relationships aside from his marriages. He had a notable affair with actress Merle Oberon, which stretched from 1938 to 1947. After his separation from Pilar, he found companionship once again, this time with his former secretary, Pat Stacy. She stayed by his side until the very end of his life.
And we had become very friendly, very close, I guess, because one of the things is we were working on toward the same goals.
Pat later shared their story with the world in her book, Duke, A Love Story, offering an intimate glimpse into the private life of a man known for his public bravado. However, his journey was not without battles. Wayne had been a heavy smoker since his youth, and in 1964, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. Surgery took away his left lung and 2 ribs, but Wayne faced the disease head-on. Despite fears from those around him that his career might suffer, he chose to speak openly about his illness, encouraging others to seek early screenings. Remarkably, 5 years later, he was declared cancer-free. His openness even gave rise to the term the Big C when referring to cancer. Wayne's life stretched beyond film sets and family homes. He often traveled to Panama in the early 1960s and even bought an island, Taborcillo, just off the Pacific coast. And then there was his beloved yacht, the Wild Goose, always docked in Newport Beach Harbor. So cherished was this vessel that it earned a spot on the United States National Register of Historic Places in 2011, becoming a lasting symbol of Wayne's love for adventure and the open sea. At the time of his passing in 1979, John Wayne's net worth was estimated to be around $7 million, which would be about $25 million today when adjusted for inflation. Details of his estate were disclosed shortly after his demise, revealing assets that included $1 million in real estate and roughly $6 million in personal investments and other holdings. He also earned passive income of $100,000 annually from his investments and royalties, equivalent to about $350,000 today. Wayne owned several properties, including locations in Arizona, Newport Harbor, and Puget Sound in Washington state. According to his will, which was filed the day before, none of his estate was left to his third wife, Pilar, from whom he had separated in 1973. However, it was clarified by Mr. Warren that although Pilar was excluded from the will, provisions for her had been made in their separation agreement. In his will, Wayne left $10,000 to Mary St. John, who had been his longtime secretary, and $30,000 to Pat Stacy, who was his secretary at the time of his passing. These bequests highlighted Wayne's appreciation for his close personal staff, ensuring they received something from his estate. Passing and legacy. Wayne's place in American history is extraordinary. The United States government, recognizing his lasting influence and impact, honored him with the nation's two highest civilian awards. One of these moments came on his 72nd birthday, May 26, 1979, when he received the Congressional Gold Medal. It wasn't just a quiet ceremony. People from all across Hollywood and leaders from both sides of politics stood united to support this tribute. Famous stars like Maureen O'Hara, Elizabeth Taylor, Frank Sinatra, Katharine Hepburn, and Gregory Peck all gave their voices in favor of honoring Wayne. Even General Omar Bradley and his wife showed their support, along with actors like Robert Stack, James Arness, and Kirk Douglas. There was a real sense of admiration for Wayne that stretched across generations. Robert Aldrich, the president of the Directors Guild of America, spoke deeply about Wayne's impact not just on film, but on the culture as a whole. Despite his tough image on screen, Wayne faced a tough battle in his own life. He had enrolled in a study for a cancer vaccine, hoping to fight off the disease that was taking hold of him. But sadly, on June 11, 1979, at the age of 72, Wayne passed away from stomach cancer at the UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles. His final resting place became the peaceful Pacific View Memorial Park Cemetery in Corona del Mar, Newport Beach. Close to the end, according to both his son Patrick and his grandson Matthew Munoz, who had become a priest in the Diocese of Orange, Wayne found spiritual comfort by converting to Roman Catholicism. It was a quiet, personal decision that reflected the depth of his final days. Wayne had a special request for his tombstone, wanting it to bear the Spanish words feo, fuerte y formal, which he explained as meaning ugly, strong, and dignified. However, for 20 years after his passing, his grave remained unmarked. It wasn't until 1999 that it received an inscription which beautifully reflected his outlook on life. It spoke of tomorrow as life's greatest gift, arriving fresh and clean with the hope that we carry the lessons of yesterday into each new day. Wayne's legacy didn't end with his films or his passing. Across the country, his name lives on in places that people see and visit every day. In Orange County, California, the airport proudly bears his name, and at its entrance stands an impressive 9-foot-tall bronze statue of him on horseback. In Washington State, near Sequim, there is the John Wayne Marina, built on land that Wayne himself had given. Even in the borough of Brooklyn, New York, there's John Wayne Elementary School, home to a massive mosaic mural that celebrates Wayne and the pioneering spirit of America's frontier. Stretching over 100 miles through Washington's Iron Horse State Park, there's the John Wayne Pioneer Trail, a reminder of his rugged, adventurous spirit. In Beverly Hills, California, where Wayne once filmed commercials for the Great Western Savings and Loan Corporation, a striking statue of him on horseback stands tall at the corner of La Cienega and Wilshire Boulevard. Over in Maricopa, Arizona, the main road slicing through the town proudly carries the name John Wayne Parkway, keeping his legacy alive in everyday travel. But Wayne's impact went beyond monuments. His family, wanting to turn their grief into hope for others, established the John Wayne Cancer Foundation in 1985. Using his name and the support they could gather, they set out to fight cancer head-on. The foundation funds programs that push forward cancer research, improve patient care, and raise awareness. In 2006, Close friends of Wayne and his old Arizona business partner, Lewis Johnson, started an annual event called the Louie and the Duke Classics. Every fall, in Casa Grande, Arizona, people gather for a weekend filled with a golf tournament, a lively auction of Wayne memorabilia, and an exciting team roping competition, all to raise money for the foundation and the American Cancer Society. On May 26, 2007, people came together once again to celebrate what would have been Wayne's 100th birthday. His birthplace of Winterset, Iowa, hosted a festival complete with chuckwagon dinners, concerts by Western music legends like Michael Martin Murphey and Riders in the Sky, and even a Wild West revue that felt like a scene from one of Wayne's films. Old friends, co-stars, and costume designers shared stories at the Cowboy Symposium, while his movies played non-stop at the local theater. More than 30 family members, including his children and grandchildren, attended the groundbreaking for the John Wayne Birthplace Museum and Learning Center. Later that year, Wayne received yet another honor when he was inducted into the California Hall of Fame at the California Museum in Sacramento. In 2016, there was an attempt to declare May 26 as John Wayne Day in California. Although some lawmakers pushed for it, the resolution failed due to controversy over Wayne's past views and political affiliations. Even so, for millions of fans, Wayne's bold and outstanding presence continues to ride strong through history, his legacy woven deeply into the American story. What do you think about the life and legacy of John Wayne? Let us know your views in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.